Before we unlock the secrets of this tale, take a moment to join our circle of seekers. Subscribe now, and let the fire of stories guide you to worlds hidden in shadows and whispers. Don't forget to like and share your thoughts below, for every voice adds power to the legend. The old man's final breath was not a whisper but a storm. In the heart of ALCHEMIST, where jagged mountains clawed at the clouds and rivers shimmered like liquid silver, the greatest alchemist the world had ever known lay dying. His name was Vaynar, though few dared to speak it without a shiver. To kings he was a man of miracles, to peasants a conjurer of doom. To his disciples, he was both master and monster, the one who had uncovered secrets men were never meant to know. His chamber smelled of iron and smoke, though no fire burned. Shelves of vials glowed faintly, their colors shifting like restless stars. The apprentices gathered around his bed, their faces pale, their hands twitching with fear and expectation. They knew Kaelin's last breath would not be like any other. When it came, it was a violent exhale that shook the very walls. The glass windows exploded outward. The candles collapsed into streams of wax, and the air itself grew heavy, pressing on their lungs as if the room had drowned beneath the sea. From his lips escaped a strand of golden vapor, coiling like a living serpent. It lingered above him, pulsating, before slipping away through the cracks of the shattered window into the world beyond. Ilara, the youngest apprentice, felt it strike her first, a heat that rushed through her veins, igniting every nerve, filling her chest with a suffocating weight. She staggered, clutching her throat, her vision blurring with sparks of molten gold. Marek, the eldest, shouted, but his voice fractured into silence as the room fell into an eerie stillness. The only sound was the echo of Kaelin's breath, though he was already gone. And yet his eyes did not close. They stared upward, glassy and wide, as though he had seen something beyond this world, and chosen to send it forth with his dying exhale. Whispers spread through ALCHEMIST by dawn. Farmers swore their crops shriveled overnight. Merchants complained their horses refused to cross the valley road. Miners in the north heard faint chanting in the dark of their tunnels, words they did not know but could never forget. The people feared what Kaelin had unleashed, for they understood. A man who spent his life bending nature would not die quietly. Ilara lay awake that night trembling. Each time her eyes closed, she felt it again, that golden breath curling inside her chest, as though it had chosen her. She knew in her heart that Kaelin's final act was no accident. It was a beginning, and far beyond the mountains, in a place no map dared to chart, something ancient stirred. Golden eyes opened in the dark, and the air quivered as though the world itself had inhaled. The alchemist's last breath had been released, and now the world would never breathe the same again. The morning after Kaelin's death, the sun refused to rise on ALCHEMIST. The sky glowed a sickly gray, as though light itself was wary of touching the valley. The apprentices gathered in the tower's grand hall, their faces drawn tight with fear. No one spoke of the breath they had witnessed, yet each felt it echoing inside them, a phantom weight pressing against their ribs. The silence was unbearable, broken only by the creak of wood as the tower groaned as if mourning its master. Ilara sat apart from the others, clutching her arms, trying to calm the fire that lingered in her veins. She hadn't told them what she felt, the heat, the pulsing inside her chest, the way the air seemed to bend when she breathed. She was afraid not of Kaelin's death, but of what his last breath had left behind. Marek, eldest and most disciplined, stood at the long oak table, reading from a leather-bound ledger Kaelin had guarded more fiercely than his gold. The book smelled of ash and rot, its ink shifting on the page as if alive. It speaks of the breath, Marek said, his voice uneven. He called it the Aetheris Vitalis, the breath of origins. He wrote that it is older than fire, older than man, the first spark of creation itself. He claimed he had trapped it, harnessed it. And now, his voice faltered, now it is free. The words struck them like hammers. To possess the breath of origins meant to hold power beyond measure, the power to create, to destroy, to bend the laws of nature. If Kaelin had released it with intention, the world was no longer safe. Suddenly, Ilara gasped. Her palm burned as though seared by hot iron. She opened her hand and stared. Etched into her skin was a faint golden mark, a sigil that pulsed like a living flame. The others crowded around, their eyes wide with dread. Marek stumbled back, shaking his head. No, it cannot be. He's chosen her. Ilara's chest tightened. She remembered Kaelin's eyes in his final moment, not empty, But knowing deliberate, he had looked at her before releasing the breath. She felt it now, coiled inside her like a sleeping serpent waiting to awaken. That night, Alara dreamt of fire. She stood on a mountain of blackened stone, the sky torn open with cracks of gold, and from the fissures poured rivers of molten light. In the distance, a figure emerged, its form shifting, neither man nor beast, its eyes blazing like Kalen's final exhale. It spoke no words, yet she understood. The breath was searching for something, and it had chosen her to find it. The first sign of danger came with the crows. They gathered above Lismore in swarms too vast to count, blackening the skies with wings that beat like thunder. The villagers whispered of omens, of curses, of Kalen's wrath leaking into the world. By nightfall, not a soul dared leave their homes, for the birds perched on rooftops, their golden eyes gleaming unnaturally in the dark. Inside the tower, Alara's mark pulsed brighter each day, glowing beneath her skin like molten gold. She tried to hide it beneath her gloves, but Merrick noticed the tremor in her hands, the way the air thickened when she grew afraid. "You must leave," he told her one evening, his voice low, urgent. "The breath will not remain dormant within you. If the people see what you carry, they will burn you before the crows ever strike." "But where would I go?" Alara whispered. "The breath chose me. If I run, won't it follow?" Merrick's jaw tightened. He was a man of reason, trained to follow laws of alchemy, not fate. And yet, as he looked at her, he saw the truth etched in her trembling form. Kalen had chosen her as the vessel. Whether curse or destiny, she carried it now. That night, as sleep clawed at her weary body, Alara awoke to the sound of scratching on the tower walls. She crept to the window, heart hammering, and froze. The crows were gone. In their place stood figures cloaked in shadow, their shapes shifting like smoke. They pressed against the stone, their hands long and crooked, their whispers seeping through cracks like venom. "Alara!" they hissed, her name drawn out as if carried by the wind itself. "The breath belongs to us." Her chest burned, the mark on her palm searing so bright it lit the room in a halo of gold. The shadows recoiled, shrieking, their forms twisting in pain before dissolving into mist. The tower shook, dust raining from the rafters. Alara collapsed to her knees, clutching her hand, her body trembling from the surge of power that had spilled from within her. When dawn arrived, the tower stood silent, but the walls bore dark stains where the shadows had pressed. Marek found her trembling by the hearth, her eyes wide with fear. "They're coming," she whispered. "They know where the breath is. They'll never stop until they take it." Marek said nothing, but the look in his eyes told her what she already knew. The breath had not been released into the world by chance. It had been hunted before, and now its hunters had awakened once more, and Alara was the key they sought. The night after the shadows came, the air turned sharp with frost. It was the middle of summer in Lismore, yet the wind howled with a bitter chill that clawed at the bones. Villagers awoke to find their wells frozen, their crops dusted with a thin sheet of ice, and their breath visible in the air. It was not weather. It was a warning. Deep in the tower, Merrick pored over Kalen's ledger again, his brow furrowed. Alara sat nearby, staring at the mark on her palm that now glowed constantly. A faint ember that pulsed with every heartbeat. "The shadows were not spirits," Merrick said finally. His voice trembled, not from fear but from certainty. "They were shades, servants of the hunter." Ilara's head lifted. "The hunter?" Marik's eyes darkened. "An ancient being. Older than kingdoms, older than men." Kalen wrote of him in fragments, never fully, as though even writing his name risked summoning him. "The hunter is bound to the breath, drawn to it like a starving wolf to blood. Wherever the breath is, he follows." Ilara's stomach nodded. The dream she had seen, the golden cracks in the sky, the figure that had emerged, it hadn't been a vision of Kalen. It had been something else, something watching her. That evening, the tower bells rang without warning. A villager staggered to the gates, his body frozen stiff, his lips cracked and blue. Before he collapsed, he managed only 3 words. Here." The apprentices rushed to the battlements. Beyond the valley road, through the curtain of mist, they saw a figure walking slowly, deliberately, cloaked in black furs, tall as a giant, its face hidden by a mask of bone. Around it, the crows circled endlessly, their cries tearing the sky apart. With each step, the ground froze solid, frost spiderwebbing across the stones. The hunter had arrived. Panic gripped the apprentices, but Alara stood frozen, her hand burning like fire against her skin. The mark blazed brighter, brighter until Merrick grabbed her arm. "You must leave," he said fiercely. "He comes for you, not us. If you stay, we all die." Ilara shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "Where could I go that he cannot follow?" Marek's grip tightened. "You cannot outrun him. But perhaps you can outwit him. The ledger speaks of a sanctuary, an ancient forge hidden in the mountains, where the breath was first shaped. If there is hope, it lies there." The tower shuddered as the hunter's voice carried across the valley, low and resonant, like the sound of mountains breaking apart. "Child of the breath, you are mine." And for the first time, Ilara knew the truth. Running was no longer a choice, it was survival. The mountains welcomed her with silence. For 3 days, Ilara and Marek fled the valley, guided only by Kalen's ledger and the burning mark etched into her palm. The hunter's presence stalked them like a shadow, trees. Cracked under unseen weight, frost curled across rivers as they crossed, and crows circled endlessly above. Sleep came in fragments, filled with dreams of fire and bone, but Ilara pressed on, driven by the pull of something ancient calling her north. At last they reached it. Hidden in a gorge of black stone stood the Forge of Origins, carved into the mountain itself. Its entrance yawned like the mouth of a slumbering beast, lined with runes older than words. As Ilara stepped forward, the mark on her hand flared so bright it lit the cavern, and the doors of the forge rumbled open. Inside was no ordinary forge. The air shimmered with heat, though no flame burned. Rivers of molten gold flowed beneath transparent stone floors, glowing with a light that seemed alive. At the center rose a great anvil, black as night, humming with power. "This is where the breath was born," Marek whispered, his voice trembling. "Where the first flame of creation was captured." Before Ilara could speak, the cavern shook. Frost surged through the entrance, freezing the molten rivers solid in an instant. The hunter had found them. He stepped into the forge, towering, his mask of bone gleaming in the golden light. His voice rolled through the chamber like thunder. "The breath belongs to me." Ilara's chest seared. The mark blazed, and she collapsed to her knees as the breath roared awake inside her. Images tore through her mind, Kalen's experiments, the endless pursuit of immortality, and finally, his choice to release the breath so it might find a vessel strong enough to wield it. Not to hoard, not to destroy, but to restore what was broken. The hunter raised his hand, frost spilling forth in a storm. Marek leapt forward shouting, but the ice swallowed him in a wall of crystal. Ilara screamed, the breath surging in her veins like wildfire. She staggered to the anvil, pressing her marked hand against its surface. The forge erupted. Golden light burst outward, filling the cavern with searing brilliance. The hunter shrieked, his bone mass cracking as his form dissolved into shadow, torn apart by the raw force of the breath. The frost shattered, rivers of molten gold roared to life again, and the mountain itself trembled, as if it had drawn breath for the first time in centuries. When the light faded, the hunter was gone. Marek stirred weakly, freed from the ice, his eyes wide with awe. Ilara stood at the anvil, the mark on her palm now a scar, faint and quiet. The breath had been released, but this time, it had chosen to remain within her, tempered by the forge. She looked at Marek, then to the horizon beyond the cavern. The world was changing, and the hunter's fall was only the beginning. The alchemist's last breath had not ended with Kalen. It had only just begun. The alchemist's last breath has been released, but the legend is far from over. What new shadows wait beyond the mountains? What ancient forces are still hunting in the dark? Only time will tell. If you felt the pull of this mystery, subscribe now and keep the fire alive. Leave a like to strengthen the circle, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your words may shape the next chapter of the legend.